My name is Angelina Avedano, and this is InterSpace, where we explore the spaces between us. Join me for discussions on a series of realities with thinkers, writers, thought leaders, and artists. Meg Marie O'Rourke has been working as a registered dietitian for over 15 years. She earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Nutrition and Dietetics at St. Joseph University in West Hartford, Connecticut, and completed a postgraduate dietetic internship at the University of Connecticut School of Allied Health. Meg's private practice, Harmony with Food, provides nutrition consultations for clients with eating disorders, diabetes, food allergies, and weight management concerns. Welcome, Meg Marie O'Rourke. Meg, I am so happy that you and I are here together today to talk about your work with individuals, their relationships with food, their relationships with unhealthy relationships with diets, exercise, and body image. I think your compassion and your insight is helping so many individuals today who are completely confused about what they're supposed to be eating and what they're supposed to be doing. So would you just explain a little bit more about Harmony with Food?
Yeah, so basically the title of my programs and my business is Harmony with Food. And what I've discovered over the years is most people don't have a harmonious relationship with food, but they want one. But they just don't know where to turn. It's so confusing, You have Oprah Winfrey, who doesn't look up to Oprah Winfrey, right? But she made $42 million the first day she joined with Weight Watchers, okay? She partnered with Weight Watchers and made $42 million. And I will tell you right now, Oprah Winfrey is not eating Weight Watchers frozen meals, okay? So then we have Marie Osmond, who, she does look great. I mean, who knows if she got nips and talks, and that's the other thing with Holly Weird. You just don't know what they're up to, right? So you have her making millions of dollars selling that Jenny Craig. Now, Marie Osmond is also not eating that processed, fake, artificially flavored, who knows, GMO-ridden food. She's just not. So we're all getting bamboozled by all kinds of different things. I'm seeing it even now on Instagram. I'm seeing ads for Weight Watchers, Noom, Jenny Craig, and I'm just like, oh, God, I'm just inundated with these things. So they're targeting women. They're tempting you. And the reality is diets don't work. Diets actually make you lose muscle. And you'll lose fat, but you'll also lose muscle. And there's a direct relationship between how much muscle you have and how fast your metabolism is. So diets actually cause you to lose that muscle. And then when you're done with a diet and you've, stopped complying to whatever that diet is, insert crappy diet plan, whether it would be keto or, the water diet or whatever diet it is, there's always going to be a new one. And then you're done and you try and eat like a normal person. You're not even overeating. Like say you're eating, 1,500 calories a day and you're gaining all the weight back and you're just seeing it come back and back and back. And then you think, oh, I guess I'll have to go on that compliance diet again and, deprive myself and starve myself and be hangry. And that just is not a harmonious relationship with food.
Yeah. And there's so much shame tied to that too, because if you're not successful, and yet you're in this kind of losing situation where it's a no-win situation, but it just compounds the shame that you're already feeling.
Yeah, and people are telling me, like, they will miss, before COVID, they would not go to social events because they know they're saying to themselves, oh, everyone's going to notice I gained all the weight back. And then they isolate, then they feel the shame and the embarrassment. And then, well, let's face it, if you came back and you gained some weight and people notice, somebody's going to make a comment, not like about the fact that you gained weight, but like, oh, I got to lose weight. It's going to happen, right? So it's like we're all just in this thing. I don't know if we'll call ourselves gerbils on the wheel or whatever, but like, I don't know, when is good enough going to be good enough and what is healthy? I see some people that call themselves coaches and they have like the 8-pack. And I think to myself, it doesn't look healthy to me. That looks like orthorexia, which is eating too healthy and exercising too much. And, and sometimes, honestly, those people look like almost like they smoke or something. They have a really rough edge to them. And so, like, where's that happy medium?
Hmm. Have you always felt this way about the kind of system, the medical system and the diet industry? Or did you slowly come to this awareness over time? I mean, you went to school to become a nutritionist or a dietitian. How did this start to dawn on you that the system was flawed?
Yeah, so I think I realized when, like you're naive and you just finished graduate school and you think you're going to change the world. And I just realized when I worked in the hospitals, not all situations, for instance, in the ICU, like I worked in a level 3 trauma unit, they really do need the nutritionist because you have to do everything through the vein. So, they need a team. They need the nutritionist to calculate out what nutrition the person needs and vitamins and minerals and electrolytes. They need the pharmacist to get that together. They need the doctor to order it, so it's like a real team effort. But other places I worked with, I don't know, I just felt like none of the doctors, even some of the nurses, they just didn't really think nutrition was important. And it would always be like this last minute thought, like someone's leaving and, oh, she's leaving in an hour and can you get the nutritionist to come here? Because we just realized, she just got a letter out and she was asking about nutrition. So, and then it's like you have other people to see. So you'd rush over to see someone. That person's waiting to leave. It just always felt like it wasn't that important.
Mm. Yeah. And do you feel like that people have some place to turn to get the right information?
I think it's getting better. I think that unfortunately, maybe one of the silver linings is with COVID is people are seeing like functional nutritionists, naturopathic doctors, and actually paying for things that aren't covered by their health insurance. I know everyone cannot afford to do that, but a lot of people can. And a lot of guys buy like $3,000 sneakers and women buy, tons of money, or people spend, $350 on going out to eat and buying coffee every month, And if you really just dissect that, almost anyone could take a step further and like say I didn't accept the insurance that a person has. Well, if they really dissect their budget, they can come see a nutritionist if they set their priorities straight. And with the way things are right now, I think that we all need to make sure our immune systems are in tip top shape.
Well, yeah, I mean, with COVID and everything that's been happening the last couple of years, are you seeing more people that are turning to nutrition to help them boost their immune systems?
Yeah, I am seeing more of that. I'm seeing more people that are doing some of the proactive testing that I do. But, I still have people that, have just found out they have diabetes, or people that just found out they had high blood pressure, or maybe they've had diverticulitis. So a lot of different GI issues and different kinds of things too.
And what do you think is the relationship between the emotions and food? Because this, for me, feels all mixed up together. You can't treat one without the other. So how do you manage that in your practice?
Yeah, if someone has a true eating disorder, it's going to be a team effort. It's going to be, they're going to see a psychologist or a nurse practitioner who can prescribe. They're going to see their doctor and they're going to see me, because that can be really, really, really serious. But people do sometimes, I will, if I'm working with a person for a while and they're not seeing any kind of natural healer or therapist, social worker, or something like that, and I see that they are having a lot of emotional eating going on, then that's not my role. So that's out of the scope of my practice. So, I will talk about emotional eating, but if I see it's a real problem, they're going to have to go another direction too and get that kind of more of a team effort type of thing.
Yeah. Don't you think that there's always some conversation around that with emotions as it relates to food and diet and body image?
People learn at a very young age, whether they've been traumatized or whether they grew up. A lot of people have grown up in families where it was all about dieting, or all about, eating healthy to the point it's not healthy. And it's like they wouldn't even ever give their kid an ice cream. And then when they finally get an ice cream, the kid goes like haywire, So I think it's all about just, realizing that a lot of people do eat based on their emotions, whether it's anxiety or depression. And then the flip side of the coin is some people can't eat when they are depressed or anxious, or maybe they lost a loved one. Like, yes, you would probably well know, sometimes people lose their appetite. Some people eat too much and then get depressed. Some people lose a ton of weight and then are like, so I think it's all over the place. But one thing I do know is that, some people smoke for anxiety reasons and whatever reason, whatever high or whatever they get out of that. Some people drink. Some people do drugs. Some people go to their therapist and get all, like, oh, I have anxiety and depression. They don't eat good food and they don't exercise, but they just keep on those prescription drugs. And then other people, I don't know if I said drink too much, but basically, there's all different things people can do to cover those feelings. But a lot of people, if they don't do any of those other things I mentioned, they use food to cover their feelings and basically cover up their emotions. And it feels good for a little while. But then when you wake up with that food hangover and you start your day going, okay, I'm going to do better today, and that never happens, I think that's a true sign when somebody needs help.
You say on your radio show, and I hear you say it all the time, that diets don't work. And I think that's such a radical thing to say, because we are trained to believe, and here we are in January, right? This is the time. Everybody's going to start at the new year, right? We all start. It's like I start my new journal. I'm going to start my next new diet. And, by April, my journaling is not going that great. And neither is my diet, right? So, but I just want you to say a little bit more, because you say it all the time. But I know that when people hear that, what do you mean diets don't work? That they're going to be kind of shocked or taken aback. So say a little bit more by what you mean.
Yeah, many women and men come into my office and say, I've never heard anybody else say that. And it's like, I know for a fact there's other dietitians who feel the same way. I mean, that's what we go to school for, right? But I think when it's explained to them in a way that can make sense objectively, like, yeah, you lose fat, but you also lose muscle, and then you do it all over again. And then you go, oh, what worked? Oh, I'll do it again and again. And, I think it's part of the business plan for Weight Watchers and some of these companies to just let you, why do we have to number food? Like, we've been eating since we were babies. Like, why do we have to number, weigh, go to meetings, people clap if everybody, lost a pound. You could have took a poop that morning. I mean, it's really, really, really crazy if you think about it. And it's almost cultish. Well, I think it is a little cultish. And I think people get really wired to it, and people either love it or hate it, or love it and go back and forth with it. And so I think it's just a really sick way of, it's not just me even saying this. Like, psychiatrists say, if you're thinking about food more than 90% of the day, and most people on Weight Watchers do, trust me, I've met many of them. I've worked with people on Weight Watchers, and I see what they do at lunch and stuff. And it's just like, stop talking about food, that is not healthy. And that's actually eating disorder-ish on the other side of the coin, not anorexia, but the other way.
Well, I always am fascinated when you say that if you're thinking about food, 90% of the time, I don't know what the percentage would be that is healthy, that you should be thinking about it, but that's really startling awareness to realize how much of my day is consumed with what is my next meal and what can I have, and how, counting the stuff and using my app or whatever it is. And I think too, there's so much competition and shame that is attached to it. Like, like you said, if I did or didn't lose a pound that week, or that I need to go and measure myself alongside other people. And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, but clearly this has become a big business.
Yeah, I mean, there's even been football people have gotten caught, on hot mics saying, like, you thought we made a lot of money in football? Weight loss is the real industry you want to get into.
Really?
Doing the Jenny Craig ads. Yeah, I forgot who it was. My husband would know, but yeah, definitely caught in a hot mic saying that one time. And then it's like, why are we going to let the scale dictate our mood, right? Like, you get up in the morning, you see you didn't lose that pound you were hoping for, maybe you even gained a pound. Oh God, it's like, now I'm in a bad mood. Whereas if I lost a pound, I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. And it's like, but what has really changed? Nothing. You could still sit in traffic. You could still get in a fight with your boyfriend or your husband. You could still have someone at work be rude to you. Yeah, we have to stop letting the scale dictate our mood and our mindset.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're right. There's some kind of unhealthy imbalance there with how much we're obsessed with it. But for women in particular, I think that's all tied into body image and whether or not you're going to be validated, approved of, get the next, what shall I say, get the next, promotion. And there's a lot of judgment about women's bodies and control over women's bodies in this country. And this is just playing into it as well. I mean, have you experienced that yourself?
Of course. I mean, there are studies out there that have shown, like, they've looked at thousands of people going on interviews and stuff. And if people actually, the thinner people get the job, and to me, that's just crazy. That's like not liking someone because they had blonde hair or not liking someone because of the color of their skin. That's just so shallow. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a woman on this earth who hasn't either. I've had people say to me when I was sick, this is how crazy this is. Okay. I was sick in 2013. I have a GI disorder. I won't go into it, but lost a ton of weight, like a lot of weight, maybe 20 pounds. And I was already not heavy. So it was kind of like, And I remember this guy came up to me at the radio station and said, "What happened to you?" And I was like, and before I could even say I've been sick or anything, he goes, "Could you go eat some pasta or something?" And I'm like, you shouldn't be saying things like that to people, whether it's thin or it's heavy or whatever. It's like, keep your comments to yourself. I mean, I'm not an easy crier. I literally went into the bathroom and started crying because I was like, I cannot put weight on right now. Like, I'm not doing this on purpose. I'm a nutritionist, and it was just very hurtful and mean. And I can only imagine it on the flip side of the coin, where even women think, they'll say to another woman, like, that's heavier than them, like, "Oh, I need to lose weight." And they know that the other woman is probably thinking the same thing. It's kind of like, let's get this conversation going kind of thing. And I just think it's not necessary. And we need to stop letting our egos get into our way and just be, look deeper than that. I mean, especially, when you get to be like 40, 50 or whatever, it's like, what are you doing on this earth? And like, let's get deeper than like just what is on the outside. I will say though, love them or hate them, I do have to say the Kardashians, back in the day, it was like Twiggy. It was like these sticks, everybody that was models were super thin. And the Kardashians have brought back like curvy is kind of cool kind of thing. And I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting for me to listen to you talk about, being on the verge of tears because someone's complaining to you for being too thin. For anyone who's carrying extra weight, they're always hoping, they wish they could be like you, right? They wish, they look at you and think, oh, it must be great to be you.
Ugh, I don't think so. I was not feeling well at that time. I was very sick. I ended up in the hospital for 10 days and I was in and out of the hospital, and I started getting very nervous and anxious because I couldn't stop losing the weight. So just the flip side of the coin, right? Sometimes people have hyperinsulinemia or they have a thyroid disorder that triggers, or hormonal disorder that triggers this. I mean, I've had people tell me they've gained like 60 pounds in this like short amount of time, like 3 months, and they're not drastically eating different. So something's going on medically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that can happen, and then it just snowballs, just like it can snowball in the other direction.
Do you think that, because I have experienced, or at least I sometimes have suspected, that sometimes the medical care that I receive is a little bit biased too. If you don't look a certain way, I mean, they can always just kind of fall back on, well, you just need to take off a few pounds, right? So they don't take you seriously about something that might really be going on because there's a judgment attached to the way you look.
Well, that's where you need to probably, or you or anybody, not you in particular, but anybody that feels that way needs to probably look into themselves and say, okay, I'm just going to go into this doctor and I'm going to be assertive, not aggressive, just assertive. I'm going to have a list of questions I have and be your own healthcare advocate, because just as these people went to medical school, I mean, as you well know, you have a PhD, like doesn't mean they're smarter than you. They just happen to choose that field. So, and then they went to school for it, and then they got kind of drank the Kool-Aid about the pharmaceuticals and everything. I mean, their whole curriculum is based on the CDC and the American Medical Association and Big Pharma. Let's face it, right? So they're drinking the Kool-Aid from an early age, and they're in school all that time, and all they're learning about is pharmaceuticals and surgeries and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not totally against conventional medicine. I just think that they kind of skim the surface, and we need to start digging deeper.
I love that you brought this up, because I wanted to get into this, because you're very outspoken about Big Pharma. You're very outspoken about the GMOs. And so I want to hear your perspective on what's happening with first of all, our food, what is happening with our food, and how we're being poisoned by our food, and the kind of big, the food industry that is promoting this unhealthy food and then blaming individuals for, what's happening to them. Could you talk a little bit more about you're talking about this on your radio show all the time.
Yeah, so they're putting a lot of chemicals in our food. There's over 3,000 different additives, food coloring, artificial flavors, and the average person consumes I think it's at least 3 pounds of this stuff a year. So it's scary. Roundup is being sprayed on wheat, and it's frightening when it comes down to it, okay? So we need to be really careful about, okay, so what happened when we were little? What were we fed as a child? At what point are we going to say, okay, I don't want this stuff in my body anymore? It's kind of interesting with COVID. I think more and more people are doing the indoor gardening. I'm actually really thinking about doing it myself. And, just getting back to, nature. And I know we don't have time to be farmers like you or I, but we can make friends with our local farmers. How many people are friends with their local farmers? And if you're not now, I'm going to highly suggest that you do, because I think in the future, I don't know if you've heard, but they're saying that the shelves in the stores are getting less and less, there's less. And now there's something going on with OSHA and the truck drivers, and a lot of the truck drivers don't want to get the vaccine. And they're pushing back, and a lot of them are leaving their jobs. They just don't want to be truck drivers anymore if they have to get the vaccine. So how is all the food going to get to places? Not just food, parts for our cars, computer equipment. I mean, it's getting a little bit scary. So I think we all need to start prepping more and stuff like that too. But yeah, the chemicals in our food and stuff. I mean, why does the cereal for children need to be pink, purple, and turquoise? Why? And it's always, if you ever notice in the food store, they put those really pretty cereals at the length of a 3-year-old, or not the length, but the shelving, the height for a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old or 8-year-old. And a lot of times parents are tired. They're working full time. Very few families have just one person working. And if they do, they're even more tired if it's just a mom with a single mom. And they're going through the food store, the kids bugging, can I get that? Can I get that? Can I get that? You're tired, you're hungry, you want to go home, and sometimes you just don't want to argue anymore. So sometimes the kids win. But just know, they're trying to bamboozle us, and we all need to be, we need to support the local farmers. We need to find organic foods. There's all kinds of trickery that goes around. So, for instance, let's say you and your husband came up with a organic pickle that you wanted to market, and it would cost you thousands and thousands of dollars to get it on the market. And it really did. For you to make 50% profit, you had to charge $5.99 for that pickle. Well, now what Shaw's does is they see that all these pickles going off the market, this organic pickle is it's doing so well. So what they do is then they mass produce it, and they charge $3.99. And then your organic pickle is gone. And they have a very similar one. It may not be organic, but there's all kinds of games that go on with the food industry. So just trying to give a few examples to make people aware. And then I always say, and I don't know if you've heard me say this, but, Tom Brady and Ron Gronkowski are not eating Dunkin' Donuts or Tostitos, even though they advertise for both of those things. And I just think it's kind of funny. It's like Tom Brady is not eating Tostitos, and shame on them because they have so much money and they sold their souls,
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's pretty provocative.
Yeah, I hope Tom Brady's not mad at me,
Your good friend Tom. I hope he's not mad at you too. I don't know if he's going to listen to your radio show next time now that you said that. Or maybe he will, actually. But, I want to circle back to, but first of all, this talk about food makes me think about poverty, makes me think about certain areas of the country or certain parts of a city where individuals do not have access to fresh produce or do not have access to the kinds of foods that you're talking about, or they don't have the money. I mean, I lived in poverty while raising my children and had only $50 for every 2 weeks to buy groceries. You can't buy the healthiest of groceries when you're trying to feed a family like that. And I know that that many individuals can't make the healthiest choice. And I like being at the point in my life now when I look back on that, and I'm sad about it because I know that it's had a long-lasting effect. You can't get away from the effects, and I know that that's kind of a legacy that has happened in my family. But now I can say, and I tell my students this too, when you are able to make better choices, then you can make those choices. But for people who feel really stuck and don't have those options, I mean, what would you suggest to encourage them?
Yeah, well, from what you said, I would tell you what Saglam from my membership would say, and she would say that was a was. So let's not be sad about it. Let's just learn from it and move on, right? So we can't change. So she always reminds me that if it was a was, there's nothing you could do about it. Like, stop renting that space, right? Yeah, and there are situations. We all know there's situations where people either rely on the government and then they only get that certain amount of food every week, or they only get that certain amount of gross cheese every month or whatever it is. I know my husband grew up on that. And so it's sad. It really is sad. And I think that, but I do have to say, like, you could buy popcorn. That's so cheap. Like, instead of having grabbing that bag of potato chips, you could do like popcorn. And even to this day, I could show you $50. And I'm not saying it's not happening out there. It totally is. But I could show you $50 worth of healthy food and then $50 worth of Doritos and I don't know, snowballs and all this other stuff, right? And you would get more nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants for the $50. Now, then maybe you could buy rice and beans. But I also think a little bit of emotion goes into it. And, a lot of people that are in those situations, as you well know, my husband knows, is that they don't have a choice. Like, it's like, okay, so like they don't have a lot to make them happy. So if they want to buy their kid a cake, so what? You know what I mean? Like, it, and I'm not saying it's a good teaching tool for your child to like, oh, you're not happy, eat cake. No, that's not what I'm saying. But like, if you want to buy your kid, your kid loves ice cream and you want to buy him some ice cream. I mean, who am I to say that that's not okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we covered that, and I wanted that, but I had started out by saying you have a lot to say about big pharma and what shall we call it? The medical industrial complex. And yet I think it's so interesting that you came out of that and then started your own business. So I want to hear your perspective about big pharma and the pharmaceutical industry. And then I want to hear how you kind of you had to make that decision to move out of the system and out onto your own, which had to be kind of scary.
It was scary. It was hard. I actually didn't even tell my parents about it because I didn't want to hear all the questions. Because if you don't come from an entrepreneurial family, it's like, I knew it would be like, how are you going to get health insurance? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? You may not have a check every week, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, I just didn't want to hear it. So once I was established, like a year or two later, I started, telling them. So how I did it was I consulted in nursing homes. And I would work like 40 hours a week, then I'd work 30 hours a week, then I worked 20 hours a week. And then when I was at like 10 hours, like 15 hours, I knew it was time I could just leave and devote to the practice. But I built it up over a couple of years, consulting in different places. And I just found that, just little things that stuck in my head, like, I remember one time like walking into a room and the doctor explaining to this patient that had Crohn's disease that he was now going blind because he had to take so many steroids his whole life. And he had diabetes. So he had diabetes that can affect your eyes. So I don't know which caused which. The steroids caused the blindness or the diabetes caused the blindness, but it was from the steroids, and just little things like that I heard over time, and things that had gone wrong and just, I don't know, it didn't lead. I just was reading things about how much, how they're charging for pharmaceuticals and then you'd hear things about price gouging and there's a lot of information out there if you really want to look for it, which I was doing. And I was just like, I'm just going to take a different route. And I'm going to say that I have nothing against conventional medicine. I worked with amazing surgeons and nurses and social workers and all kinds of great people. And it's not just, let's remember, it's not just the nurses and the doctors. It's the social workers. It's the discharge planners. It's the technicians. It's the people that read the x-rays. It's like a whole bunch of people there. And I think people a lot of times just give credit to doctors and nurses. And so I just want to throw that out there. But yeah, conventional medicine.
Well, you were one of those people, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
You were one of those support people.
Exactly. But, if you need your gallbladder out or your appendix out or you broke your leg, you're going to need to go to the ER, you might need surgery or whatever. And thank God for that. And then, there are people that have certain issues like type 1 diabetes. That's when the isolate cells of the pancreas are no longer functioning. That has nothing to do with what you've been eating. That's type 1 diabetes. And you could be born with that and you could be born with it and know your family knows you have it by 3 months old. So, and then you're on, the insulin and everything like that, but you wouldn't be alive without it. So I think there's a happy medium. I just think that people need to start getting their priorities straight and not just being like the cow going into the barn. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, we can't just do what the insurance companies allow because they don't really care. And I always say that 50-year-old white guy working at XYZ insurance company doesn't care about us in 20 years. Like, if we eat healthier, we're going to not have diabetes. Do you think he really cares that whether or not this healthcare system has improved? No. The answer is no. The answer is he's going to show his people that he's getting all the, the saving money. This is how much money they saved. This is how much money they made. And he got his whatever $50,000 bonus, $100,000 probably. So I think it's naive to think that the insurance companies should want to help us get healthier because they don't care about us.
Well, we certainly are living in a capitalist society that is going to make, the goal is to make money. And that has been, we've been trained to believe that that's success and no matter what the cost, right? And which also plays into this idea of, the medical system, the insurance companies, it's not about the person anymore. It's not really about people. It's about profit. And once you dehumanize these systems, which I think we're seeing, this is happening with all of our systems. It's not just the diet industry. It's not just the medical system. It's education. It's the government. We just don't focus on human beings anymore. We're really about profit and power and, expanding what shall we say, the kingdom or the territory,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The colleges now that they have these maybe not community colleges, but like some of the other colleges that you wouldn't believe what they serve for food. It's just like, holy moly, and it's marketing, and it's people will pay more if their child is going to be, fed well and the dorm looks nice, and, versus going to some ratty or lower, costing college where the dorm doesn't look as pretty and the food doesn't look as great. Well, guess what? Mother's guilt or whatever you want to call it. People always want the best for their children, and if they can afford to, they're gonna do that. The price of college is just. I'm sorry, but I don't think the return on investment is there anymore where it was years ago.
Well, certainly everything is changing, but I think that even in that situation where you have parents who are trying to do the best for their children, and trying to give them all the benefits that perhaps they didn't have, the systems themselves often don't see people and the humanity in these situations. So it's still about profit. It's still about what can we get in order to make ourselves bigger, better, stronger, and have more than the others. So I think that mentality, it's kind of contaminated almost every aspect of our lives, including our food. And you mentioned marketing and advertising. You also were mentioning like Tom Brady isn't eating those Tostitos, but just the advertising itself is so compelling. Like it's almost as if we don't realize all the science and psychology that's behind all of that. The programming that we're a part of, and that feeds into all of our unhealthy behaviors. And instead we just kind of pile on the shame, pile on the blame. And that's not to say that we're not responsible, right? We do need to, be accountable, but you have to wake up to do that and unplug from the programming. And I think you talk about this a lot, about this kind of unplugging and waking up and realizing what's happening and kind of, you said earlier, advocating for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, thinking about being the CEO of your own body, right? Like how, and who cares how long it takes to get to whatever that goal is, the quick fix is not the answer for people. And, it's a journey. And I think that, they're fine. I mean, they've always known, like herbalists, I'm not an herbalist, but herbalists have found like all kinds of stuff that has helped with things, whether it's improving your immune system or helping with GERD or helping with different things, and I just think there's so many different things out there that a lot of people aren't looking at. In 2022, I think I'm really going to focus on, like some of these herbal things that we can do that, not so much herbal, but, putting things in your water like lime and watermelon, to make it taste a little bit better. Maybe you'll drink more water that way instead of drinking Crystal Light or something like that. But these different things that we can be doing to get our immune system better in a way that's enjoyable. I think that's important too, because otherwise, I don't know about you, but I don't like to be told what to do. So I just make suggestions and hope that it'll help somebody. And I don't know who I'm going to serve every day I get up. I don't know who I'm going to serve. When I do my radio show, I don't know who's going to listen. I don't know who's going to not. I don't know if I'm going to end up with a hater, because that's happened too. Like, I just don't know, but I just try and stay in my assignment and serve what I'm serving. And it definitely hasn't made me rich, but I love what I do. Well, I mean, monetarily. So, but I love what I do. And if it pays off someday, it pays off, but if it doesn't, I'm okay with that too.
Do you feel that you walk a kind of fine line between offending some of the medical or pharmaceutical industries? Do you ever get pushback from an insurance company or folks?
The only time I've ever gotten anything that was always anonymous. Like it was like, you're a blah, 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 you're this, you're that. Usually very hurtful. But if you can't put your name on it, it's kind of like the Ku Klux Klan, right? Like if you can't show your face, something's wrong with this. And if you want to come to me and talk to me face to face, I'll do that. You know what I mean? Within reason. I mean, but anybody that has to remain anonymous, then, they're just a bully or a coward.
Yeah. You've had quite a journey to come out of the medical system where the security, right? That's the safe place, the security. Stay in that zone, stay in your lane.
Oh, yeah, I think about that sometimes, like all my nurse friends and stuff, and they're still in that system and they don't really like it, but they're safe. They get their check every week, even with COVID and stuff. It's like, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you think that, were there things that happened in your life that allowed you to be, I don't know, out of the box enough to take that risk?
I think, after like 5 years of being a dietitian and just being like, oh, this is great, and then it's not so great, and then getting punched in the stomach here and there, and because you were just so at the bottom of the totem pole in the hospital, because of course we don't make money for the hospital. We actually cost the hospital money, where at least nurses in a roundabout way, they are making the hospital money because they make mega bucks with the surgeries, right? So if the doctors can't do the stuff the nurses does, but they need the nurses to be part of that charge for the surgery, right? So the doctors can't just do the surgery and then say, they need the nurses and stuff. So they, in a roundabout way, do make money for the hospital, but the dietitians don't. So, we were very, very thin staffed. Like it was like you'd see a social worker on every floor. A dietitian would have like 3 floors to cover. So it was always like, and then at one point I learned about how much the CEO of the hospital made. And I think it was back then, God, maybe around 2000, 1995, somewhere around there. I remember it's a small hospital, and I remember seeing he made $12 million a year. It's like, this guy isn't doing surgery. He's upstairs doing, Excel and stuff. Like, this is crazy. And it made me feel even worse for the surgeons.
And you were probably making I can't even imagine, and you don't have to reveal it, but I know you're probably making just maybe a little more than a minimum wage.
I was probably making $40,000 a year. So and then I would walk into the hospital every day. Like I remember just strutting in the hospital every day thinking, somebody's making a lot of money, and it's not me. Somebody's making a lot of money, and it's not me. And then there was also like the feeling of not being appreciated,
yes.
The lack of respect. Of course, there were always some doctors that were like, oh, thank you for doing that, blah, blah, blah. There's always some, but in general, a lot of times the nurses were so busy, they hate to even see you coming. To say like, I noticed so-and-so has diverticulitis, and I'm going to go in the room and I got to talk to them about this and that. And that they're thinking to themselves, oh, great, now I got a chart about it. You know what I mean? And I don't blame them for that. I blame the system because they're understaffed. People think nurses make a lot of money. Right now during COVID, they do, because they're given like all kinds of incentives. Like I think nurses are making, if they're not employed with the hospital, you can get contracted for like $100 an hour, which sounds great. But I don't know about you, but what they have to do, and I won't go into details, I won't elaborate, but you couldn't pay me enough to do it. I wasn't put on this earth to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Were there other things in your life that helped you to, get where you are today?
Well, of course, I couldn't have done it without my parents, right? Like they really did, I have to say they paid for not my graduate school, but all of my I always had my own car, and I had to pay for my own insurance, and they always paid for my books and stuff. So I was very, I don't know if you want to call it privileged or whatever, very blessed that way. But I think, I don't know, I just was always a little different, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs just have that little urge in them that says that they don't want to do things the way everybody, like they don't want to be, for you, for example, like you're a professor, but you also wrote a book. You're doing entrepreneurial things, right? So that professor role is not enough for you. So I think people that are entrepreneurs, it's just a little spark that you have that's a little different than other people. And it could be a gift from God. I don't know how you want to look at it, but whatever it is, you're just wired a little differently.
Yeah. Well, and what has been one of your greatest challenges or something that you really had that took you to your lowest point and made you come through to the other side?
Yeah, so I think but I'll tell the audience is that my first husband died when I was 29. So I had a lot of challenges with that. I had to sell my house. I had to go move into my parents' house in my old bedroom, live there for like a year. Imagine being married and then you have to go back to your parents' house. I finally bought a condo. I got into the condo and there were all these rules and there were a lot of mean-spirited people there and they were like just crazy stuff, like tell you that, you had to take your Christmas wreath down by January 1st and you had to shut your garage door immediately when you came. It was like, I don't know, it was weird people that I just was not resonating with. Moved from there into an apartment because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Actually had to go to an attorney and he told me to just sell the condo and just get out of there because those people weren't going to change. So I did. And then, it's just a sad time for like, I'd say 5 to almost 10 years where I was just kind of lost. All my friends were having babies. I never really wanted kids, but all my friends were getting married, having babies, baby shower, wedding shower. And I had to attend all of those with a smile. It's like, what would you say? Like, lights on action, kind of thing. Like I had to go and pretend that I was happy and it was just difficult. And sometimes I would pretend in front of my parents even. I would make them want to think that I was happier than I was because I didn't want them worrying about me all the time, So it was tough. But I will end saying, I am married again and I've been married over 10 years now. And so, life is for the living and sometimes you just have to move on.
Yeah. What do you see coming in 2022 for you and Harmony with Food?
Well, I do have, I actually, it's funny. I just thought of this today in the car. I'm going to try and run my course every month and I'm going to make it 4 weeks and instead of 6, and I'm going to, have 2 classes a week. And so it'll be a 4-week course, 2 classes a week, and all the other information that I have with it, like the PDFs and the videos and the worksheets. And there's a quiz on what is your relationship with food. And we go through it together in the group. We have a private Facebook group. And then I have my membership with experts like yourself. So you've been in the membership as an expert teacher on grief. And I have a healthcare advocate coach. I have, a national best-selling author Lisa, who wrote a book, The House with 4 Rooms, based on a Chinese proverb. I have a trainer. I'm trying to think. I don't want to leave anyone out. I know I have other people, but anyway, it's a myriad of people, of experts that meet on throughout the month, and you get a calendar and it shows all the different dates. And that membership is called Harmony Within. And it's really building and growing support online. And honestly, for $97 a month, I'm not even making any money right now because I'm paying all the experts and everything. But eventually I'm hoping that the membership grows and then I can grow the other offerings, maybe retreats, movie nights, and all kinds of fun stuff that I plan to do in the future. So that's coming. I have just got up on my site, the BioUnique Boutique, which is the food sensitivity and all the advanced testing, the proactive testing that people can do. And so I'm just working on my online presence and, my Instagram and social media, and just trying to build the business in a way where I can work less and have more time, make more money. And, I'd love to see, I don't know if it's going to happen, but, I'd love to see my husband get out of his corporate job at some point if I can manage that. So I have high hopes for 2022.
Wow, that's a lot of vision. You said something I'm kind of interested in. Before we go, though, I want you to tell me a little bit more about the testing in the BioUnique Boutique.
Okay, so it's like I always say, why is vitamin D the Kim Kardashian of vitamins? And actually, there's two types of vitamin D. There's vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. But most people, the doctor's only checking the D3. So that's one thing. And then there's all the other vitamins, vitamin A, all the Bs, B6, B12, B1, B2. And then there's vitamin C, manganese, magnesium, zinc. I mean, I could go on and on, but I won't, so I don't bore you. But then you can also check amino acids, branched chain amino acids, and certain amino acids can help people with their mood, with better sleeping. So there's inositol that can cause an interference with weight loss. And so there's all these different things that we can check that the conventional doctors aren't checking. And then I do a stool test. It's called microbiome testing, where you can find out exactly what pre and probiotics. And then I could also recommend things like oil of oregano or lemon balm oil or other supplements and things that you might need. So it's really like honing in on exactly what you need: food sensitivities, food allergies. Trying to think what else is in there. But it's up on my site, harmonywithfood.com, and it's a tab called the BioUnique Boutique.
That's incredible. That sounds really fascinating. Thanks for sharing that with us. Well, is there anything any parting words that you would say to encourage people to, at the beginning of this year in January, to make a commitment to change their relationship with food?
Yeah, I'd say, first of all, just on the anti-diet dietitian. So just forget about that word. Just try not to even go there. Don't get tempted by the commercials or your friends or what they're doing or how somebody else lost weight. And food is meant to be enjoyed. And you had mentioned earlier, and I want to say this, the normal amount to think about food. And that's when you're shopping, cooking, and eating is 25, according to psychiatrists, is 25% of the day. So check yourself. If you find yourself you're at 50 or 80 or 90, that's a sign that something's wrong and you probably need some professional advice.
That is really incredible advice. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for a great conversation, Meg. I always enjoy our time together.
I know.
And I can't wait to see what happens in 2022 for you with all your vision for Harmony with Food. And thank you for collaborating with me as well.
Oh, ditto.
Thanks, Meg. Have a great new year.
You too. Thanks, Angelina.
If you would like to contact Meg about private medical nutrition therapy or learn more about her courses and membership to Harmony Within, you can reach her at harmonywithfood.com. That's harmonywithfood.com, or call 401-245-8784. You have been listening to InterSpace with Angelina Avedano. My heartfelt gratitude and appreciation goes to my husband, David Needs, Senior Production Engineer. If you would like to learn more about me or my work, look for me on Facebook and Instagram, Dr. A. Avedano with Cicada Personal Metamorphosis. That's Cicada with a Y, CYCADA. Or you can email me at dr.aavedano@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. This is Angelina reminding you that we're all connected.